Make it without faking it. This title. How many of you are uncomfortable with this title? Oh, come on, there's a lot more. Okay, let's go backwards. How many of you believe that you have to fake it to make it? Well, I don't need to say anything tonight then. Okay, half. Okay, how many really believe that you need to fake it to make it in this world? Because that's what we've been taught. Okay, thank you. You're not going to get in trouble. You know, I'm not a principal here. I'm here to talk with you about it. Well, this has been a journey for me because I've had to learn how to self-promote without making myself and others cringe. And I think this is a challenge that we all have. How many of you are here in business, own businesses, entrepreneurs, right? And this is a challenge of ours, right? To self-promote without making ourselves and others cringe. So I'm going to share my journey with you. And hopefully, even if someone walks away tonight, one person, two people, a few people, thinking a little differently, then I've achieved my goal. So let's see how it all started. In the beginning, how are those cheeks? Don't you just want to bite them? I mean, I think I'm super cute. I was clearly not short of any food. You can see that. And earlier on, I was hungry and I had 2 ginger snaps. I'm still not short of food. But there I am growing up, and I was born in a real estate dynasty. The lady on the left is my late grandmother, Aida Geffen. And she started Aida Real Estate in the 50s. And her name's actually Ada Geffen, but she saw the opera Aida. She wanted, that gravitas. And so her brand is still around today. And she was like the first lady of real estate. And my father, Lou Geffen, who's in the center, actually worked with her in the business. And you know that expression, a small tree can't grow underneath a big tree? Well, he decided that he wanted to leave and start his own real estate business with my mother. And they started Lou Geffen Estates in 1982. And they were fantastic at marketing. And then they slowly became quite a dominant force in the real estate industry. And in 2000, my father Lou reached out to Sotheby's International Realty and showed his credentials. They were founded in 1976. The auction house was founded in 1744, so it's a lovely brand. And then it became Lou Geffen Sotheby's International Realty. Now, I was literally brought up in this dynasty and brought up on a real estate diet. And when I say that, every conversation was real estate. Every conversation, at dinner, at breakfast, at lunchtime, had hardworking parents, okay? And I even remember my father rocking my sister, my baby sister, in his arms going, "How many deals have you done today? How many deals have you done today?" So their boards were everywhere, these Lou Geffen Estates realty boards. And their payoff line was definitely sold. And I remember getting lost one day as a little girl and thought, if I just follow the signs on the pavement, I'm going to find my parents. It didn't turn out that way. I landed up somewhere very remote, but thankfully someone did manage to find my parents. But there was a lot of pressure growing up in this kind of successful family. I was always referred to as Lou Geffen's daughter or Aida Geffen's granddaughter. So I didn't have my own identity. And I felt a little lost because in my head, I felt like I was more than that, but I didn't know who I quite was. So at the age of 22, I decided to leave. And I decided to go live, play, and work in the hardest city in the world, New York City. How many of you have been to New York City? It's fabulous, right? I still consider it my home. And in this city, I felt that I fitted in amongst the freaks and the fabulous. Everyone was equal. On one subway car, there was everyone from a hobo to a Wall Street broker. And for the first time in my life, I felt absolutely anonymous. And I did such interesting things that I never would have done in South Africa because I was short of money, desperate, and wanted to make it in the city. So my first job was being like a promoter at a film festival, getting people in at the Greenwich Film Festival. My second job was packing shoes, manual labor, in Queens, Astoria. And I worked for a company called Zoom. I don't know if you know Zoom, the footwear company. Now, let me tell you something. Manual labor is a gift from heaven, a gift. You come to work, you do your job, you take your 1-hour lunch break, and I went to Subway, sandwiches every day. And at 5 o'clock, you get cash in hand and you leave. And there's no more cerebral activity going on at night. You go home, you chill, you eat, you wake up, it's another day to go to work. And I was devastated because this amazing job was taken away from me. I was too short, I was a woman, I was not strong enough, and they needed factory workers. I was devastated to lose such an easy job. And then my next position was a receptionist for an animation studio called Noodle Soup Productions. Yeah, Noodle Soup Productions. And I learned a trick quite early in the game. I learned how to make the worst pot of coffee so that no one would ever ask me to make it for clients. No one. And when clients would come in, because I was the receptionist, hi, how are you, blah, blah, blah. They loved the South African accent. And I would say, let me make you some coffee. No, Yael, we got it. Yael, we got it. We'll make them coffee. Just go back to reception. I was like, yes, goal achieved. Goal achieved. And I started off as a receptionist, and then I went on to head up the business development division because they saw I was quite good at sales and they liked the way I spoke. And I had all sorts of clients, all of them from Madison Avenue, all the advertising agencies. And it was such an exciting time. And we sold anything from animation to commercials. Chips Ahoy was one of our clients. And the one day, this group of actors walks into the animation studio, and they look like this. I know, aw, and they've got these puppets, and they tell me about the show that they're bringing to Broadway. And it was so exciting. I read the script, and I thought, wow, this would be such a cool project. They wanted a Sesame-type style of animation on the sides of the Broadway panels in the actual theater. And they wanted a pro bono because they were actors. They were just starting off on Broadway. Broadway's a huge deal. They had to save every penny. So I met with the producers and the directors. I read the script. I thought, it's a no-brainer. We have to do this. And I went to the executives of the studio and I said, we have to do this project, even though it's pro bono. And they were like, no, Yael, what are you smoking? We don't do pro bono. We're a business and we're not doing it. And I got so upset, I said, if you don't do this, I'm walking out of here because I believe in this so much. Now, I was their best salesperson at the time, so they didn't want to lose me. I was quite risky saying something like this. So then they said, okay, we'll indulge you, we'll do it. And lo and behold, this play was called Avenue Q. And in its first year at Broadway, it won 3 Tony Awards. And it went to London and Las Vegas. And I was invited to opening night. And I sat there in the theater, and Cynthia Nixon from Sex and the City was to the left of me, and Rosie O'Donnell to the right. And my name is still in the playbill. And it was such a New York glow. It was such a New York glow, honestly. It was such a wonderful memory. And the grand irony is the studio that didn't want to do it, guess what they used to promote themselves the most? Avenue Q. We did the animation for Avenue Q, right? It's amazing what happens. So then after New York, I went to live in Los Angeles for 2 years. I had an animator as a boyfriend, and I followed him to LA, and he got a job at Cartoon Network. And I worked as a strategic planner at an advertising agency. Now, this is funny. The name of the advertising agency was Omelette. So again, following the food around, following the food. And the crash of 2008 happened. And one day I was called into a meeting called a touch base meeting. And one of the executives swiveled his chair and told me that I was being let go. along with 14 other people. Now, I was one of two that got 2 weeks' notice, which was an absolute compliment to get in the States. The rest of them had to leave that day. They were escorted out, laptops come to the front, and I know you're shaking your heads. No CCMA in America. Oh, no. It's like, okay, bye. Okay, bye. I hope you can hear me. I think I echoed. That's how it felt at the time, okay, bye, with an echo. I thought, I haven't seen my family in a while. I just lost my job. My boyfriend and I broke up. It was, it comes in threes. My friend's father, my best friend's father, passed away. I thought, let me go visit my family. So I did. And I went to South Africa and I spent some time with my family. I was planning on heading back to New York, but I was in no rush because I was with my family. The crash happened. Stores were closing down. Businesses were closing down. It was a terrible time. But then in 2009, something very tragic happened to my family. My brother, the very handsome gentleman at the end, committed suicide. And it was a terrible blow for the family, a terrible blow for me. He was my best friend, my rock. And he worked in the family business. He was the third generation. And when people used to meet him, he used to light up. And they said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm Barak Geffen. I'm the heir apparent." And people would look at me and say, "Well, who are you?" And I'd say, "I'm Yael Geffen, the heir not so apparent." Turns out I've become apparent. But it was a terrible blow for our family, a very tragic time. And Barak had made me his alternate director in the company. So all of a sudden, I'm back, and now I'm a director, and I'm sitting on the board of this family business, the thing that I ran away from to go live in the States and find my identity. Thank goodness I had found my own identity by being anonymous and learning who I was. And I came back, and now I'm on the board, and I'm putting strategic input into the board and handling marketing. And 7 years go by, and then something else tragic happens in our company. At our convention in 2016, our national convention, where we celebrate the agents and we hand out awards, and it's all about their accolades and acknowledgement, our former CEO murdered his wife and staged it as a suicide. You can only read about this stuff in fiction. Can't even hear a pin drop. That's how unbelievable this is. Our brand was in crisis. Our people were in crisis. It was a very traumatic time. And all over the press, articles like this were happening. And the name of our brand was being used in all these articles, which was extremely, extremely hectic. So there's that Shakespearean quote. Some of us are born into greatness, others become great, and some of us have greatness thrust upon them. Well, I was the latter. And within a year, I took on the position as CEO with the right team in place. But it was the craziest time because not only was I the only woman CEO out of all the real estate leaders who were very astute men who had been there a lot longer than me. I was swimming in this sea of testosterone. I was also the youngest CEO, a single mom with a 4-year-old, okay? It was a technical recession. I was the chairman's daughter, so hello, nepotism. People love nepotism. And now I had to represent 500 families. Our agents have families across South Africa, an international brand that is older than the United States of America, and be the liaison, and be the South African affiliate of a brand that has more than 1,000 offices in the world and 26,000 agents. It was stressful. It was a fun time. Let me just tell you that, a fun time. So, as I got launched into this new role, I decided to do something, and I decided to wear ties. Oh yes, I decided to wear ties. And after wearing the 5th or 6th tie, I looked at myself in the mirror and thought, Yael, you look like such a schmuck. What are you doing? This isn't who you are. I mean, I'm 5'2", I curse quite a bit, but essentially, I'm very feminine. And I was turning away from myself. I was trying to be like all these men because I was feeling insecure. And I had what I like to call, some people call it imposter syndrome. I call it a crisis of confidence. And for ease of use and an acronym, I really like to call it a COC. A crisis of confidence. I can't hold it together with the slide. I just can't. And each and every one of you, at some point in your lives, are going to get sidewinded by a huge prickly cock. If you haven't already, and I'm talking about crisis of confidence, people. Just reiterating that. Even Reese Witherspoon experienced a crisis of confidence. She was filming that film, Walk the Line, and she was on a podcast, on Adam Grant's podcast, and she was saying she had such a moment of insecurity that she wasn't going to be able to fulfill this role of June Carter. So she actually tried to get out of the movie. But her lawyer said to her, you are going to get so nailed if you leave this role. You are going to be fighting legal battles for life. So she decided to take a breath, and she decided to gear up and equip herself. She got a dialect coach for June's accent. She got a singing coach, a dancing coach, and she really got meaty into the role. And what do you know? She walked away with Oscar. So I decided, you know what? I deserve to be here. I deserve to be here, and I'm going to take my place. And I'm going to take these fake filters, these stupid ties, and I'm going to replace them with foundations. And that's what I started doing. Then I thought, I'm going to take this COC, crisis of confidence, and I'm going to turn it into an AOA, an area of authority. I'm going to become an authority in the property world. And how did I do it? Well, I did a few things. I got a mentor. I resourced myself. I built credible networks. You are in a fantastic network today. Suits and Sneakers. This is where you are geared to do some amazing business. So after this talk, I urge you, suggest you, invite you to speak with each other and get to know about each other. I focused on self-improvement, on education, on acquiring skills and knowledge. And I focused on building credibility. And in a few short years, by focusing on my foundations rather than the filters, amazing things happened. And I decided to put together a little video for you to show you all that happened to me. Enjoy. Thank you so much. And you will recognize in one of those moments in the video, I'm standing actually on this stage at the Tryst, where we did our event for the first time. So Mark, you've been such a good friend and an inspiration in my journey. And today, I want to set up something in your minds where possibly in a few years' time, you have your own highlight reel, and you can go back and celebrate all these little milestones. Because it's amazing how we forget. I've forgotten a lot of that. And I remind myself every time I look at it, actually, gosh, okay, I did something. That's cool. So just to expand about replacing my filters with foundations, how many of you enter award shows? Okay? All right, this is something you need to start doing. Is it arrogant? Or is it self-promotion? Entering award shows are an extension of your company, of your brand. It takes a lot of work, trust me, a lot of work to put all this nomination stuff together. Your eyes want to bleed. You think, why am I doing this? But if you win and you get that exposure, it's fantastic. And then I got asked to speak on certain panels, like the World Leaders Summit and thought leadership pieces on the bottom left. Ding, 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 spot the women. Spot the women, there I am, bottom row, still happening. And then I was asked to judge some competitions. Yesterday, I put this thought leadership article out there. How many of you are on LinkedIn? Oh, great, you're my audience. Okay, how many of you put opinion pieces out there on LinkedIn? Okay, how many of you want to put opinion pieces out there but don't really know how to do it? A lot, right? Yeah, a lot. Putting your opinions out there. What do they say? Opinions are like farts. Everybody has them. Okay? I don't know if you've heard that. You see, I told you I'm crass. It's terrible. It's terrible. But I am wearing a skirt, so I'm feminine. So opinion pieces are fantastic. How I fell in love with Mark Sham as a person is looking at his opinion pieces and the way he promoted himself in the world, but from an authentic place, because his stuff is interesting to read. I follow Mike Abel. I like reading his stuff as well. Very inspiring. And then I got to speak at a TEDx, which I encourage you guys for your businesses or topic to really go out there and do something like this. It was the most nervous I've ever been in my life. I did this talk, but a smaller version of it, 18 minutes, and my knees were literally shaking as I got on stage, but I just had to experience my cock and just go with it and turn it into foundations instead of filters. And there's my son and myself posing for a picture because I'd won Women of Stature's CEO of the Year for 2023. And last year I won my first global award, which is very cool, the Women's Business Club, and I was runner-up for Women in Property and Construction. It's not arrogant to enter award shows. It's not. It's a way of self-promoting. But the highlight of my career so far was getting to interview this little lady at the Tryst in 2020. Her name is Dr. Edith Eger, and she wrote the books, The Choice and The Gift. Have any of you read The Choice or The Gift? If you haven't, please, I urge you to read these books. They are life-changing. And in her books, she has sayings and expressions like suffering is universal, victimhood is optional. She is one of the longest-standing Auschwitz survivors. And she experienced the Holocaust. She even saw her mom go in a separate line to her. And a few moments later, she asked one of the guards, "Where's my mommy?" She said, "See that smoke coming out of the chimney there? That's your mommy." This is what this woman went through. And she landed up turning all this madness into meaning and the suffering into meaning. Viktor Frankl was her mentor, as I said. So one day, I decided we were doing our convention, the 2020 convention, and it was virtual because of COVID. And I thought to myself, who is the most resilient person that I can think of on this earth? And because I've always loved her work, I thought Dr. Edith Eger. And I thought, well, how do I reach this woman? I mean, she's interviewed on Oprah, on Ellen DeGeneres, and then I tried to put myself off. And I thought, you're never going to reach this woman. Anyway, I went to her website, I filled in the form, the contact form. I told her my story, the brand story, the crisis that we've been through, my own personal tragedies with my brother. And I asked if she wouldn't mind being a speaker at our convention. I thought to myself, I'm never going to hear from her. Never. Anyway, I did it. I put up my hand. Literally a week later, I'm driving my car and I see an email at katie@dredetheger.com or something like that. And I'm thinking, it's a standard email. Thank you for this. Sorry, we can't do it. Blah, 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 blah. Buy a book, New York Times bestseller. Go and get it. And then you can, vicariously talk through Edie. And she writes an email to me, this Katie, and she says, Edie would love to be interviewed by you. And I actually pull my car over because I think I'm actually seeing things. I think I'm actually going to crash this car. And then I reread it again. Edie would love to be interviewed by you. I burst out crying because she's my Muhammad Ali, my lifetime hero. And there we are, her in San Diego. She was 94 at the time. I think she's about 98, 99. She still can kick her leg up high. I don't know how she does that. And there I am at the tryst. So the lesson here is say yes. Put your hand up and say yes. Say yes until you can afford to say no. Because we are living in a reputation economy, okay? It's a new kind of economy, and everything is about self-promotion. Whether you like it, whether you are new to the workforce, an entrepreneur, a business owner, a celebrity, you have to self-promote in this world, given. And part of self-promotion these days is personal branding. You are an extension of the company that you work for, okay? And a perfect example to illustrate this are these two people. Who's the guy? Right, from? What company did he work for? Does he work for? Amazon, correct, okay? Used to be the CEO, was the founder, is now the chairman. How many of you know about this person? Put up your hands. Okay. Who is the lady? Does anyone in this audience know? I didn't. Her name is Carol Tomei, and she's the CEO of UPS. And she has done just as brilliant stuff as Jeff, but she is not in the press and she's not a personal brand. And that is a tragedy, because what she's done for the company is absolutely unbelievable. But no one has been paying attention to her personal brand. She hasn't worked on it. And the company was so foolish, UPS, to not help her work on it. Because executives estimate that around 44% of a company's market value is attributed to the reputation of the CEO. So self-promotion is essential. It's a necessity. It's not a nice to have. But it's exhausting because we are on all the social media and we have to put ourselves out there, and we'll talk about that just now. Not only that, 77% of consumers are more likely to buy when the CEO of the business uses social media. You're clapping. Okay, let's all clap. Okay. So if you own a company or running a company, you can't ignore this anymore. You have to be on social media. You just do. It's the way of the world. We have to self-promote. But what are we doing? We are self-inflating. We're putting ourselves out there in a very posturing kind of way because we don't know how to effectively self-promote. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place for posturing, okay? When and how is it okay to self-inflate? Self-inflation is making yourself appear bigger in the world, and self-promotion is working on how the world perceives you. They are two different things. We're using #humbled and #blessed and virtue signaling and false modesty. Did Nelson Mandela ever use #humbled? Do you honestly think, what are we doing? It's nuts, but everyone else is doing it. Everyone else is doing it, so we get on the bandwagon. So I'll tell you when there's a perfect time and place to posture. Okay, a few years ago, I was in the game reserve, and I decided to go on a game walk. Has anyone ever been on a game walk where the big five are around you? It's thrilling, it's exhilarating, because the idea is you might see one of them. And then you have to pay attention to what the game ranger tells you to do, because there's strict protocol when you go on a game walk in the natural environment of the big five. So the game ranger tells us what to do. There's a group of about 8 of us. And he says, right, guys, and he's got a gun. He says, if I go like this, it means freeze. If I go like this, it means back away. And if I go like this, well, then you're literally stuffed. No, he didn't say that, but I'll get to that point. So there we are. We're walking stealth mode, and you have to keep quiet, and you're walking single file, and it's all very exhilarating. And the game ranger in front goes, ha, look at that. It's a black rhino. Track. Should we track it? And he looks at us, and we all go, yes, yes. Now, there's a reason one doesn't track a black rhino, ladies and gentlemen. There's a reason. So we're now on the hunt for a black rhino. And we're walking and walking and walking single file. And the next minute, he does this. And we stop, we freeze. Then he does this, and we back away. And out of the brush, we see this gorgeous, hairy black rhino. The black rhino starts charging. And he's charging now. And I am going white, and so is everyone else. We are all soiling our pants. I'm thinking, I am going to witness a murder. I am going to witness a murder. And the game ranger puffs him up. He takes his gun and puts it over his head to make himself bigger in the world and bigger for the black rhino. And he goes, oi, oi! And the rhino's carrying on, charging. This rhino doesn't care for this gun, this game ranger. And the game ranger puffs himself up even more and holds the gun. And he goes, oi, oi! And within 2 meters of us, the black rhino turns and walks away. Well, trots away. Whew. The game ranger just played chicken with a black rhino, and he won. He won, okay? Now, in this incident, there's 2 cases of posturing. One, the game ranger's, and thankfully his posturing by making himself bigger in the world saved our lives. But the second one was me and all of us, because I didn't want to miss out on hashtag walking with black rhinos. I didn't want to miss out on that opportunity. Did I want to come face to face with the black rhino? Hell no. Hell no. Do you guys want to come face to face with the black rhino? No. But I ask myself, how many charging rhinos do we get on a daily basis in society? We don't. But how much rhino-level posturing is happening around us? People are posturing as rhinos, eating their salads and having their Starbucks. It's crazy. And that is what self-inflation is. Self-inflation we hate, and self-promotion is great. There are 2 different things. Self-promotion is putting yourself out in the world, sharing your attributes, your values, and sharing what you do. And self-inflation is saying, look at me, making yourself appear bigger instead of focusing on how the world perceives you. But then you ask me, okay, well, that's all very well. If I don't self-inflate, Yael, how do I actually take something that might not be suitable for me, but I think I can do it? If someone gives me work or an opportunity, how can I put up my hand and say yes if maybe I haven't had that experience doing it? There's nothing wrong with improvising. Improvising is a great word. Simon Sinek also doesn't believe in fake it till you make it. He says, push your limits and push your boundaries. There's nothing wrong with improvising. Richard Branson says, say yes, and then figure out the how later on. And what is that how? Those tools I've shared with you. Resource yourself, network, collaborate, right? Change your filters into foundations, and you can do it. Say yes and figure out the how later on. So where do we start? Okay, the easiest place in which we can start is to look at our social media, okay? Now, you are going to need to do an MBA, and it's not what you're thinking, it's not the degree. An MBA is a my bullshit audit. You're going to have to look at all your bullshit on social media. And for that, you're going to need an NBF. And an NBF is your no bullshit friend. This is my NBF. And she helps me put together all my comments and my social media from knowing me authentically. Is it me? Isn't it me? So then you look at your social media channels. Now, my no bullshit friend said to me, okay, Yael, yes, on LinkedIn, you're a business leader, you're a mental health advocate, you're a speaker, but you've got activist on there. Now, are you an activist? I had to think about that. No, I'm not really an activist. I'm passionate about certain issues like gender-based violence, women and men against child abuse, mental health. I'm a strong advocate for it. But Nelson Mandela was an activist. I can't really call myself an activist. And you see these titles on all this LinkedIn, right? You see influencer. And then I think to myself, hold on, I influenced my child to eat fiber this morning. Does that make me an influencer? I wonder. Then you see agitator. Now, I was married. I agitated daily. Does that mean I'm an agitator? What does that mean? Then the other day, I saw something else. I saw 7 times entrepreneur. Now, isn't that like saying you're 7 times human? And then, don't you think, okay, maybe this person failed at 6 businesses, but the 7th one has done well. You see what I'm saying? What's the point? Okay? And then we have the flip side, ladies and gentlemen. The stuff that we should be diminishing, the self-inflation, we're diminishing, okay? We should be diminishing that. We're not celebrating our wins. So the stuff that we should be inflating and amplifying are our wins, and the stuff that we should be diminishing is the posturing. It's ludicrous. So how do we celebrate our wins? Well, I think we should all take a leaf out of Snoop Dogg's book. A few years ago, he got an award on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. How many of you have seen this? This speech has not only gone viral, but it appeared in many TikTok videos. It actually was revived last year. And this is what Snoop has to say.
Last but not least, I want to thank me. I want to thank me for believing in me. I want to thank me for doing all this hard work. I want to thank me for having no days off. I want to thank me for never quitting. I want to thank me for always being a giver and trying to give more than I receive. I want to thank me for trying to do more right than wrong. I want to thank me for just being me at all times. Snoop Dogg, you a bad.
Okay. Now, not all of us can get away with that kind of thing. We're not all Snoop Dogg. But I wanted to share an example with you of Timothée Chalamet, who won the Screen Actors Guild Award 2 weeks ago. And he said such a wonderful speech for such a young man, and he made such an impact. And this is what he had to say.
And lastly, I can't downplay the significance of this award because it means the most to me. And I know we're in a subjective business, but the truth is, I'm really in pursuit of greatness. I know people don't usually talk like that, but I want to be one of the greats. I'm inspired by the greats. I'm inspired by the greats here tonight. I'm as inspired by Daniel Day-Lewis, Marlon Brando, and Viola Davis as I am by Michael Jordan and Michael Phelps, and I want to be up there. So I'm deeply grateful to that. This doesn't signify that, but it's a little more fuel, it's a little more ammo to keep going. Thank you so much.
quite unique and makes an impact. Unfortunately, he didn't win the Oscar. Adrian Brody did, but he accepted it like a true gentleman. So if you've earned it, you deserve it. Put it out there in the world. Celebrate it. Because 79%, there we go. I can do it. 79% of consumers consider trust as a crucial factor in their decision to engage with the brand. That's the reality. We know this. People like to do business with those they trust and like. And you don't want to be on the butt end of something called schadenfreude, which is taking pleasure in other people's pain. We like seeing perfection fail. It's funny. That's why there are those memes of models walking on the catwalks and falling over, and dogs and cats wiping out. It's funny. But you want to be that person that people want to root for, not take delight in watching fail. You want to be that person because we are all going to fail at some time or another. But if you are likable and if you're trustworthy, you will get grace. So credibility and likability or trust equals success. So the lessons to take away from this, and I've gone so over time, I just look now and I do apologize, but I hope it's all been meaningful. Turn your filters into foundations. Turn your crisis of confidence into amplifying your authority. Put your hands up and say yes. Say yes until you can afford to say no. Celebrate your wins. And lastly, lead with authentic confidence. You have no idea the power you have as business leaders. Business leaders these days tower over other figures in society. And this is a recent Edelman Trust Barometer study. It's okay to have a cock sometimes. It's going to happen. I had one this morning. I thought, who am I to stand on the Suits and Sneakers stage? Richard Mulholland's here, John Cena. It's okay? Recognize those charging rhinos. Let them eat their salads. And if you recognize your own inner charging rhino, freeze. Walk away, back up, engage in your My Bullshit audit, get your NBF, resource yourself, say yes until you can afford to say no. Put yourself out there, self-promote. And if you find yourself still feeling insecure and wanting to use a filter, replace it with a foundation. Replace it with a foundation. Maybe we can celebrate wins again and give ourselves permission to be human again and celebrate ourselves from a place of authentic confidence. So I invite you all to stand up, please. Stand up. Stand up, and at the count of 3, I want you to say, I deserve it. But you have to do it loud, because this is like the end of my speech, and this has to be powerful. Okay. 1, 2, 3. I deserve it. Thank you so much. A standing ovation. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. #grateful. Thank you.
You actually weren't over. You were on point. I want to give you guys a moment to ask a question or two. I'm going to come around, so you're just going to have to follow with us. But I actually just wanted to read this to you because it just landed perfectly. And I've been thinking about this topic a lot because of the talk coming out. You all know Anthony Bourdain. So I was browsing on the net about 3-4 weeks ago, and I read this little story of his, and I used to watch quite a few of his shows, and I read some of his stuff. It's like, I've always really enjoyed him. But there was a specific story, and it's short. I'm going to read it to you, because I landed up just putting it in my own words. I put this on LinkedIn, and it was a perfect example of what you said. Remember to come up with your questions. This is also me giving you some time. I read a story about Anthony Bourdain the other day, and I want to share it with you in my own words. He was 44 years old, still dunking French fries at Brasserie La Brille in New York, thinking this was about as good as it gets for a guy like him. But he had this idea to write something that would entertain other cooks. Nothing big, just a piece that would make his fellow line cooks laugh, maybe earn him $100. He figured he'd submit it to a free little paper, the New York Press maybe. So he wrote the first version of what would later become Kitchen Confidential and sent it off. Every week he'd check, hoping to see his name in print, and every week, nothing. In a moment of frustration and possible inebriation, he mentioned it to his mom. She casually told him, "You should send it to the New Yorker. I know someone there. They'll read it." And Bourdain, being Bourdain, figured, "Yeah, right. The New Yorker doesn't publish unknown line cooks. What are the odds? But on a whim, mostly to humor his mother, he stuffed a printout of his story in an envelope and mailed it off, thinking that would be the last he'd ever heard of it. Then about a month and a half later, the kitchen phone rang. The New Yorker, Dave Remnick himself, "We'd like to run your piece." And just like that, everything changed. The article was published, the literary world took notice, a book deal landed on his lap, and within days, Bourdain went from just being another chef in the trenches to a household name. Now that's the end of the story, but I added a part of it that I think resonated, which it just so resonated to where you're at. I said, when I read this last week, it just felt like this is exactly what Steve Jobs meant when he said you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking back. At the time, if you asked anyone, including Bourdain himself, what he should focus on, they'd all say cooking. And yet it was his writing, cultivated in the background, that unlocked everything. All you really have in your life is your ability to be unapologetically you. The best version of you isn't the one that fits neatly in the box. It's the version where you take this weird, messy, seemingly random mix of skills and passions, and you smash them together with your personality, and you refuse to apologize for how strange that mixture is. That is when the magic happens. And I thought about it because you were talking about how you got to the point of Edith interviewing. And I'm always so struck by how many people don't ever land the shot because they just never take it. I think half of, I was watching your clip there and I was looking at all the things, some of it I recognize and some of it I don't. But Yaeli, what you've done so well in the time that I've known you is that you just fucking have a go. And I wish it is a gift that I could impart on other people. Like, in fact, I wish I could give it to most of you sitting in the room. And it doesn't have to land like that. It's not about it landing up front. I think what's happening is that most people don't want to have the go because they don't want to suck at doing something new. And I'm always trying to get people to understand that there's a greater pain, there's a greater price you pay for staying the line. There's a greater price you pay for like being vanilla and walking the very narrow line and like never moving. And to close my TED Talk off, because it just resonates. I'm saying these things in real time because it's just what got me thinking. Like that's how I know when something's resonated for me. There's a video clip I watch once a year. It's on YouTube. It's called 5 Lessons Learned from 500-year-olds. So 5 times 100-year-olds. Okay? And they ask them about their biggest regrets. And it's such a powerful thing, right? They've all reached 100. And so they all get to ask, they all get to say what it is that they regret the most. And all of them, the number is they wish they didn't give a fuck what other people thought sooner. Like, they basically lived their life on other people's terms, and they got to a point, and the problem is now they have to pay this price of regret. And it's really expensive because they can't go back. Like, they can fix lots of other things, but that's the one thing they can't. So like a takeaway that I'm sitting listening to and thinking in my head is like, these talks, you'll find different things that Yael said to you tonight land for different people. Different things land differently. You don't need the whole talk to land. It never happens. Oftentimes when you're in a talk, the person speaking that point really lands, and then you're thinking about that point, and then you've forgotten where they're at.
Especially when I go on so long. Sorry about that.
But all you need is the 1 or 2 key things, the key things that like kind of roll around your head like, wow, that really landed. That's all you need to focus on. It's the only thing you just need to think about over and over and over, and then that's the thing you need to do. I think the greatest thing I took away from just like, what happens when you listen to someone else's story in that way, and they are unapologetically themselves in the way that you are, it just gives other people permission to do the same. I would love for that to be taken away. Who has a question?
Sorry, Mark, I just want to add, I've put together I didn't clip it when you were talking, it just happened. Sorry to interrupt your thought. But I've done a worksheet, a Make It Without Faking a worksheet that's actually on my website. And please use it. It's an interactive worksheet. It teaches you tools and tips, takes you through questions, and it's something that you can do or share with your colleagues or anyone in your lives if they're having that crisis of confidence. So there's the QR code.
So just leave it there. Okay, we're going to take 1 or 2 questions. You had one. Come with me, big boy.
Thank you so much for the talk, Mark. Thank you for hosting. Okay, to Mark's point, you get to that thought process where you're overthinking, and you just like, fuck it, let's have a go. How do you get to that point? Obviously, you had it at Noodle, you had it at Omelets, I think it was, where you were following the food, and you just took those steps. As people in everyday life, where operations and life just gets in the way, how do you clear your mind and go, fuck yes, this is where I want to be. I'm going to take this leap of faith and go for it and get over your cock.
I'm going to be known as the cock lady. That's hilarious. Okay, Mark, I just want you to, sorry, I'm not wearing my hearing aids. I know, I've got a hearing problem. So I caught half of that. Can you just translate that for me?
Effectively, how do you get to that point? How do you get to the point where you're like, you just kind of push through? To be fair, I was looking at my phone, looking at the questions there. How do you get over your self-doubt? How do you get to the point where you just have a go? Especially in an everyday life scenario.
I think I also got sick of comparing myself to others, Like seeing, so they say when you don't like someone, it's normally they either reflect a part of you that you don't like or you wish you could be doing something like them. And I got to a point where I was seeing like what others are doing and I thought to myself, I can do that. I can do that. But it's hard when you have that crisis of confidence, you want to pull back, but just feel the fear and do it anyway. Just do it anyway. Screw it, let's do it. And detach the ego from it. Because I think a lot of us get our ego so involved in the process and we take it so personally. So I entered quite a few TEDx talks before I landed up getting that one. To try and see it as not, I'm a failure, I'm useless, I'm pathetic, but see it as, okay, not this time, next. And if you can detach your ego from the process, I think you will land up putting your hand up for a lot more. That really holds us back.
I want to add that I've been thinking about this for the longest time. I speak about this in a lot of the talks that I do, but it's so pertinent. Everything in life comes at a cost. You either pay now or you pay later. What I need people to just understand is so I used to do this thing. I used to be quite overweight for a patch. And then I would sometimes skip gym. And then if you didn't know I skipped, it was like it didn't happen. It's amazing how you can tell yourself powerful stories that are bullshit. But basically what I'd be like, no one knows that I missed, so I didn't miss. Okay? And eventually what happens is you get to a point where you realize you keep finding yourself back in a position like, oh God, I've landed here again. And at some point, the fixer-upper was the new story that I started to tell myself in my head, which is that everything in life comes at a cost in life. You either pay now or you pay later. It's just that usually later is more expensive. Now, why I'm mentioning it is, I just think it's the perfect analogy here. No matter what you do in your life, you're going to have to pay a price of discomfort. So you either get over yourself and do the thing, or later you pay the price of regret, but now you can't do anything about it. And usually it's that price of regret that's ridiculously expensive. So what I found is whenever you're scared of something, you just understand that later it's going to be more expensive. And always understand that everything comes at a cost. We sometimes tell ourselves, oh, I don't want to get up on that stage because that's scary. Well, I'm trying to say, I know what you mean, but if you want to get on the stage and get over yourself, you have to pay the price of discomfort to get up here and do it. But if you don't do it, you pay the price of regret and or insecurity or lack of trust in yourself later, where enough times that you keep letting yourself down, you have no self-confidence. That's a very expensive price to pay. Are you with me? So I've actually, this was the game changer in my weight loss and a lot of other things. Anytime I'd encountered something hard, I just had to tell myself, normally the price up front is the cheaper one. Just do it. And there's this weird thing that happens. Have you ever catastrophized something in your mind so badly? 2 minutes into doing it, you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. It's just an amazing thing as human beings that we do.
So true.
And so what is the worst that can happen from asking Edith to speak? She can literally say no, or she can say nothing. But you've given yourself a shot. Another question?
What he said, that was the answer.
You got to speak like a rapper, yo.
I can rap, bro. So thank you so much. It was an amazing talk. I absolutely resonated with everything you said. I recently started a business.
Can you make it a bit louder? Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
struggling. Okay.
I recently started a business. I left my very comfortable corporate job and I left and I decided I'm going to free fall. Everybody was like, oh, so where are you going to? And I was like, No, I'm not going anywhere. I don't have a plan. But I knew it was time to leave. So just today, I felt this crisis of confidence because I pivoted from over 22 years in television industry to AI, which I know zero about. But I'm going to learn. So I'm trying to figure out how do I, on LinkedIn, for example, when I speak, I feel like I must know everything that I'm talking about, but I want to speak in the authentic voice to say, I'm trying something new, I'm being brave to suck at something new, but I feel like I have to, on LinkedIn, be all professional about it. I want to speak in Deirdre's voice and say, hey, I'm doing this, it's amazing, I believe in the products that we do, I'm not a tech person. How do I just get over that of speaking as Deirdre and being okay to say, I'm not a tech person, but I'm trying something new and I'm going to make this work because I believe in the product and I believe in what I do.
Did you get all of it?
So I think I did. So it's like New Amsterdam. I need a translator. I think what you've done is so brave. And a lot of people wouldn't dare to do what you've done already. So you've paid now, as far as Mark's concerned. Do you know what I mean? Rather than paying later and not, when you're 100, you can look back and say, you know, I did that and I made that move. I think a great kind of voice around that would be to share how extremely terrifying this is, leaving a 22, 23-year career in television to do something else, and how you're going to engage with people around you and follow those people that are in this new industry. Find those opinion leaders, those thought leaders, reach out to them, and maybe someone can mentor you. Find someone and harass them. I did to my mentor. I harassed her, Margaret Hirsch. Eventually, I got Mark to introduce me to her, and she finally accepted. But find a mentor in that industry that can help you and support you. Find people that can help write you testimonials rather than you having to, promote yourself if you're feeling uncomfortable at this point. Do good work and get the testimonials and write just a beautiful story, just like you have now, because you'll see the response you'll get. I remember there was a LinkedIn post that I was going to put in my presentation. It caused such a stir. This woman, her name was Jenny G or something, and she works at Cisco. And she had a picture of herself as a professional pic, like a glossy pic, and then a picture of herself with her hair kind of out the shower and this. And she said something like, the post went like, I used to use this as my professional pic, but it doesn't feel like it's authentically me anymore. So I'm happy using this pic, which shows that I'm a little bit more relaxed. I'm a mom, I'm a this, and I'm comfortable in my own skin. Do you know that this post got 350,000 likes and 9,000 comments? 9,000. Because people went to war with her, like, oh, the other one's more professional. Then the other one would say, well, you suck. You're not allowing her to be authentically confident. And people went to war on her post. And people love authentic posts, just like the Mark post the other day. And lean towards your vulnerability, lean towards the risk. But surround yourself with people that fill in the gaps. That's an important part. Because if you're feeling the gaps right now, there are people around you that you can resource and surround yourself with those people that can fill in the gaps.
I mean, my question is why? Why do you have to come across as professional? Who writes these rules? I think it's actually bullshit. And it's a whole bunch of people pretending. And then I'm telling you, every time someone comes along and says, okay, hold on, let me just give you the spiel. This is how it is. Then everybody else goes, oh, thank God, me too. That's all I've been wanting to do.
Yeah, it's true.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give you a warm round of applause.